Ethan checked the coordinates on his phone for the third time, squinting at the faded numbers on the brick building before him. This couldn't be right. The email from Nexus Corp had promised a state-of-the-art research facility. But what stood before him was a weathered 6-story apartment complex in a forgotten corner of the city where laundry hung from rusted balconies and graffiti decorated the ground floor walls. His consulting firm had been hired to evaluate the lab security protocols before a major acquisition. The fee alone, $50,000 for a single day's work, had raised eyebrows. Now, standing in front of what looked like subsidized housing from the 1970s, Ethan wondered if this was an elaborate prank. He pushed through the heavy entrance door. The lobby smelled of old carpet and someone's dinner, cumin and garlic. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead. On the wall, a directory listed apartments 1A through 6D, all with handwritten names on peeling labels. Only one was blank, for C. The elevator groaned as it carried him upward, stopping with a shutter on the 4th floor. The hallway was dim, lit by a single bulb at the far end. Door 4C had no nameplate, no mail slot, just a heavy steel frame that seemed oddly out of place among the other worn wooden doors. Ethan knocked. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. Hello? I'm from Titan Consulting. I have an appointment. The lock clicked, not once, but 6 times in rapid succession, different mechanisms disengaging. The door opened just enough to reveal a woman's face, half-shadowed. "You're early," she said, her voice carrying a strange mixture of annoyance and relief. "I'm actually right on time." "No, you're 3 years early, but come in anyway." She pulled the door open fully, and Ethan's breath caught. The woman was striking in an unconventional way, sharp features softened by waves of dark auburn hair that fell past her shoulders, eyes an unsettling shade of amber that seemed to catch and hold the light. She wore simple gray sweatpants and a fitted black tank top that showed toned arms marked with what looked like faint scars running in geometric patterns. But it wasn't her appearance that stopped him. It was what lay beyond her. The apartment shouldn't have been physically possible. The walls had been removed, all of them, creating a single vast space that seemed to extend far beyond the building's exterior dimensions. The ceiling was covered in copper mesh and blinking LED arrays. Vintage computer terminals from the 1980s sat next to quantum processing units worth millions. Cables ran everywhere like veins, pulsing with soft light. In one corner, a makeshift bedroom consisted of a mattress, surrounded by monitoring equipment. In another, a small kitchen area was dwarfed by server racks that hummed with barely contained power. "I'm Lena," the woman said, closing and locking the door behind him. "And before you ask, yes, this is the lab. No, you can't leave yet. And yes, everything you've heard about Project Synthesis is true." She walked barefoot across the concrete floor, her movements fluid and precise, like a dancer who'd memorized every step. "The research never stopped," she continued, turning to face him. "It just went underground. Or more accurately, she tapped her temple with 2 fingers. It went internal." Ethan's training kicked in. He needed to assess the situation, establish facts, maintain professional distance. But something about her gaze made him feel like she was reading his thoughts before he could form them. "I don't understand," he managed. "Nexus Corp hired us to evaluate." "Nexus Corp doesn't exist anymore," Lena interrupted. "It was dissolved 38 months ago. Someone is testing you, Ethan. The question is whether you're smart enough to understand why." She knew his name. He hadn't introduced himself. "How did you?" "Because I know everything that happens within a 3-block radius of this building. I know you stopped at the coffee shop on Westmore Street. I know you're wearing a wire. Company policy for first visits to uncertain locations. I know your heart rate just spiked to 104 beats per minute." She smiled, and it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I know, because I'm not just a researcher anymore. I'm also the research." The humming of the machine seemed to grow louder, or perhaps it was just the blood pounding in Ethan's ears. He should leave. Every instinct screamed at him to walk out that multiply-lock door and never look back. Instead, he heard himself ask, "What happened to you?" Lena's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across her face before vanishing behind that strange, calculated calm. Everything, she whispered. Everything happened to me. And now I need you to help me decide if it was worth it. Lena moved to a bank of monitors, her fingers dancing across keyboards with inhuman speed. Screens flickered to life, displaying data streams that looked like neural pathways mapped in real time. 5 years ago, I was the lead architect on Project Synthesis. She began, not looking at him. The goal was ambitious: create an AI that could truly understand human consciousness. Not mimic it, not simulate it. Understand it from the inside. Ethan stepped closer, his consultant's mind trying to catalog what he was seeing. The equipment alone represented hundreds of millions in research funding. So you built, what? A super advanced neural network. No. She finally turned to face him, and in the monitor glow her amber eyes seemed almost luminescent. I became one. She pulled up her tank top slightly, revealing her abdomen. The geometric scars he noticed on her arms continued across her torso, thin lines forming intricate circuit-like patterns. But they weren't scars, he realized. They were faintly glowing, pulsing with the same rhythm as the machines around them. Neural integration interfaces, she explained, letting the fabric fall back. Grown into my nervous system at the cellular level. I'm not wearing the technology. Ethan, I am the technology. He should have been horrified. Instead, he felt an unexpected surge of fascination, and something else he couldn't name. That's impossible. The human brain can't interface directly with. It couldn't, until it could. She pulled her hair back, revealing more of the patterns running up her neck. The breakthrough came when we stopped trying to make machines think like humans and started making humans process like machines. Bidirectional integration. My neurons fire, and the network responds. The network processes, and I experience it as thought. Jesus Christ. Ethan sat heavily on a nearby chair, the only normal furniture in the space. How are you still sane? Who says I am? The question hung in the air, not quite a joke. The first 6 months were difficult. Imagine suddenly being able to hear 1,000 voices at once, all of them your own thoughts, but faster, stranger, more interconnected. I almost severed the connections 3 times, but then I learned to swim in it instead of drown. She pulled up a chair across from him, close enough that he could see the faint technological glow beneath her skin, like bioluminescence. The company panicked when they realized what I'd done. Unauthorized human trials on the lead researcher. Not exactly good PR. They shut everything down, paid off the team, made everyone sign NDAs that would bankrupt them if they talked. They thought disconnecting me from the lab equipment would be the end of it, but you kept the apartment. You rebuilt everything here. I had to. For the first time, genuine emotion cracked through her composure. Something like fear. The integration is permanent. Try to shut it down would be like trying to shut down my cerebral cortex. I am the lab now. This building, these machines, they're extensions of my mind. Ethan stood, needing to move. He walked to the window, looking out at the mundane city street below. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that 4 floors above them sat something that shouldn't exist. Why did you agree to see me? He asked. If you wanted to stay hidden, why respond to the appointment request? Because I didn't set up the appointment. Her voice was quiet behind him. Someone else did. Someone who knows I'm here, knows what I become, and is using you to flush me out. He turned. That's paranoid. Is it? She stood, moving toward him with that unnaturally graceful walk. 3 days ago, network traffic in this sector increased by 40%. 2 days ago, a van with sophisticated scanning equipment parked across the street for 6 hours. Yesterday, someone hacked the building security system. Old hardware, easy target. But they didn't know I'm monitoring everything through my own channels. She was close now, close enough that I could see the rapid flutter of her pulse beneath the glowing lines on her neck. Could smell something like ozone and vanilla. Someone knows I'm here, Ethan. And they sent you, an outsider, someone with no connection to the original project, to confirm it. You're not here to evaluate anything. You're here to be seen entering this building. The implications crystallize in his mind. You think they're watching us right now. I know they are. Thermal imaging from the building across the street. Your wire is broadcasting to more receivers than just your company security team. She reached up, her fingers hovering near his collar where the transmitter was hidden. May I? He nodded, frozen by her proximity. She unbuttoned his top button with a clinical precision that somehow felt intimate, extracted the tiny device, and held it up to the light. Standard corporate equipment, but it's been modified. See this chip? She pointed to a component smaller than a grain of rice. That's military grade. This isn't your company listening anymore. Ethan, this is someone much more dangerous. She walked to a window and dropped the wire out. For stories down, it shattered on the pavement. What have you got me into? His voice came out rougher than intended. Nothing you can walk away from now. They've seen you enter. If you leave empty-handed, they'll know I warned you. If you leave with information, they'll extract everything you know. She turned back to him, and something in her expression had shifted. That mask of calm replaced by genuine worry. I'm sorry. I truly am. But from the moment you knocked on that door, your life became complicated. Then what do I do? She studied him for a long moment, and he felt like she was processing him through some vast internal algorithm, weighing possibilities he couldn't begin to imagine. You stay, she said finally, at least for tonight. We'll let them think we're talking, planning, maybe forming an alliance. By morning, I'll have mapped their surveillance network well enough to find you a safe exit route. Stay here? With you, I have food, water, a bathroom that functions, and approximately 47 terabytes of entertainment media, if you get bored. A ghost of a smile. I'm not a prison warden, Ethan. Just someone trying to survive. And now, unfortunately, so are you. He should have been terrified. Should have demanded she find a way out immediately. Instead, he found himself nodding. Tell me something, he said. If you can process information like a machine, if you're connected to all of this, he gestured at the humming equipment. Can you still feel? Not just compute emotions, but actually feel them? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She was quiet for several heartbeats. Yes, she whispered finally. That's the problem. I feel everything, my emotions and the cold logic of the network analyzing those emotions in real time. I feel joy and simultaneously understand the neurochemical processes creating it. I feel fear and watch the cascade of reactions it triggers. I'm never just feeling anything. I'm always observing myself feeling it. She sat on the edge of her mattress, suddenly looking exhausted. Sometimes I miss just being overwhelmed, just feeling something without understanding it to death. Ethan crossed the space between them and sat beside her, not too close, but close enough to be present. Then let's practice, he said. Tell me something you feel right now, and don't analyze it. Just let it be. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment her amber eyes seemed entirely human. Relief, she said softly. I feel relieved that I'm not alone tonight. The hours passed strangely in that impossible apartment. Lena prepared food, actual food, not some synthesized nutrition paste, while explaining how she'd modified her metabolism to require less sleep. Ethan helped where he could, acutely aware of how surreal it was to be chopping vegetables beside a woman who was part of a distributed computing network. You keep watching me, she observed, stirring something aromatic on the small stove. Like you're trying to spot the seams where human ends and machine begins. Can you blame me? This is... He gestured around. This is science fiction. It's Tuesday. She handed him a bowl, some kind of curry, fragrant with spices. For me, this is just Tuesday. Eat. You'll need energy. They sat on cushions near the window, where the city lights cast everything in amber and shadow. The food was surprisingly good, complex, and carefully seasoned. You learned to cook after the integration? He asked. During. I needed something to remind me I was still human. Something that couldn't be optimized or processed faster. Cooking is alchemy. Too many variables, too much intuition. The network hates it, which is why I love it. Ethan smiled. Rebellion through cuisine. Small victories. She set down her bowl, drawing her knees up to her chest. In that posture, she looked young, vulnerable, Easy to forget she contained processing power that could break encryption that would take conventional computers millennia to crack. "Can I ask you something personal?" he ventured. "You've been in my home/laboratory for 6 hours. I think we're past the formality stage. Before the integration, did you have someone? A partner? Someone who knew you were taking this risk?" Her expression clouded. "I had a fiancé. Brilliant theoretical physicist. He thought the whole project was hubris. Humans playing God without understanding the consequences." She laughed bitterly. "He wasn't wrong. When I went through with the integration, anyway, he left, said I'd chosen to become something he couldn't love. I'm sorry. Don't be. He was right to leave. I'm not who I was. Some nights I can barely remember her. The woman who made impulsive decisions, who laughed without analyzing the social dynamics of humor, who could be surprised by anything." She looked at him. "Do you know what it's like to lose the ability to be surprised? To process every outcome before it happens? Sounds lonely. It is lonelier than I ever imagined." She stood abruptly, moving to one of her terminal banks. "Let me show you something." The screens filled with data, but not the abstract kind he'd seen earlier. These were memories, rendered in perfect digital fidelity. A woman who must have been Lena years ago, laughing at a beach. The same woman in a lab coat, presenting research to a packed auditorium. Dancing at what looked like a wedding. Kissing someone whose face was obscured. "I've archived everything I was before," she said quietly. "Every memory, every experience. I can access them with perfect clarity. But they feel like someone else's life. Like watching a movie about a person I used to know." Ethan stood and moved behind her, close enough to see the reflection of the screens in her eyes. "Maybe that's not a bad thing," he offered. "Maybe we're all different people than we were. We just don't have the processing power to notice it so clearly." She turned, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. The glow beneath her skin pulsed faster. Her elevated heart rate, he realized. "You're not afraid of me," she said. "Not a question. Should I be?" Most people would be. Most people would see the monster, not the woman. "I see both." His hand moved almost without conscious thought, fingers tracing along one of the glowing lines on her arm. Her skin was warm, the pattern slightly raised like old scars. "I see someone who sacrificed her humanity to understand it better. I see someone brilliant and terrified and trying so hard to hold on to something real." Her breathing had changed, become less regular. "The network is going haywire right now, trying to predict what happens next, running 1,000 scenarios." "Stop thinking," he interrupted. "That was the exercise, remember? Just feel. I feel." She closed her eyes. "I feel like I've been underwater for 3 years, and you're the first breath of air." When she opened her eyes again, the amber had darkened, pupils dilated. The mask of inhuman calm had fallen away entirely. "Ethan." His name was a question and an invitation. He answered by closing the distance between them, his lips finding hers with gentleness that surprised him. She made a small sound, surprise or relief or need, and kissed him back with an intensity that spoke of years of isolation. Her hands found his shirt, pulling him closer. The glow beneath her skin brightened, patterns racing up her neck and disappearing into her hairline. He could feel the warmth of the technology, the faint vibration of processing power thrumming through her. "Is this okay?" he murmured against her mouth. "I don't want to." "It's more than okay." She pulled back just enough to look at him, vulnerability and hunger warring in her expression. "It's the first thing that's felt entirely human in so long I've forgotten what it was like." They moved toward her mattress, a tangle of need and curiosity. Her hands were learning him, mapping him with the same precision she applied to everything else. But there was nothing clinical about the way she gasped when he kissed the hollow of her throat, nothing calculated about how her body arched into his touch. "The patterns," he breathed, tracing the glowing lines down her spine. Can you feel them?" "Yes. They're part of my nervous system. Every touch is." She shuddered as his fingers followed a circuit down her side. "Amplified. The network processes sensation faster than natural nerves. It's overwhelming and perfect, and..." He silenced her with another kiss, drawing her down onto the mattress. Clothes were shed with increasing urgency, revealing more of the beautiful, terrible transformation she'd undergone. The patterns covered perhaps 20% of her body, abstract geometric designs that glowed brighter as her arousal increased. "You're beautiful," he said, and meant it. Not despite the technology, not even because of it, but as a whole, complete person who becomes something unprecedented. "I'm a freak," she whispered, but without conviction. "You're extraordinary." They came together slowly, carefully, two people finding connection in the least likely place imaginable. Her body responded with both human passion and something else, something that made the lights in the room flicker when she came. Her cry of pleasure echoing through the space as the entire network seemed to pulse in sympathy with her. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, fingers tracing idle patterns on a skin that mirrored the technological ones on hers. "The network is confused," she said with a soft laugh. "It has no algorithms for this. For intimacy. For feeling completely satisfied without understanding why." "Good," Ethan murmured into her hair. "Let it be confused. Let yourself just be here, in this moment." "I am," she whispered. "For the first time in 3 years, I'm entirely here. Entirely present. Thank you for reminding me what that feels like." They drifted into something like sleep, though Lena explained she never truly slept anymore, just let parts of her biological brain rest while the network continued processing in the background. But for a few hours, in the artificial night of that strange laboratory apartment, they were simply two people finding comfort in each other. It couldn't last. They both knew that. But for now, it was enough. Ethan woke to the sound of distant thunder, except the sky outside was clear. Lena was already up, standing naked before her monitors, skin glowing bright enough to cast shadows. Every screen showed different feeds: street cameras, thermal imaging, radio frequencies. "They're coming," she said flatly. "Now." He was on his feet instantly, pulling on clothes. "Who?" "Government. Private contractors. Hard to tell. Their equipment is shielded. But 12 vehicles, 47 personnel, heavy suppression gear." She was typing with both hands across multiple keyboards simultaneously. "They've been moving into position for the last hour. I thought we had until morning. I was wrong. Then we run. Is there a back exit?" There's nowhere to run." She finally looked at him, and her eyes held a terrible calm. "This building is surrounded. They have jammers setting up to cut my external network access. In approximately 8 minutes, they'll breach the door." The thunder again, closer now. Not thunder, he realized. Helicopters. Why now? What changed? She pulled up a final screen, showed him footage from last night. The two of them, intimate and unguarded. "Someone was watching more closely than I thought. They saw me compromised, saw me distracted, saw a window of opportunity." Guilt hit him like a physical blow. "Jesus, this is my fault. I distracted you. No." She crossed him, cupped his face in her glowing hands. "Last night was the first real thing I've experienced in 3 years. If these are my last minutes of freedom, I'm grateful I spent them feeling human again. There has to be a way out. You're connected to everything. I can kill them," she interrupted quietly. "I've run the scenarios. I can overload their equipment, trigger seizures in their augmented personnel, crash the helicopters. I have 12 different methods to end all 47 of them in under 3 minutes." The casual way she said it chilled him. "But I won't, because the moment I do, I prove I'm the weapon they think I am. I prove that integrating human consciousness with AI creates something dangerous, something that needs to be destroyed." She turned back to her screens. "I've spent 3 years trying to prove the opposite, that even with all this power, I'm still human enough to choose not to use it. Then what do we do?" "We." She smiled sadly. "There's no we, Ethan. You're going to walk out of here in approximately 4 minutes, before they breach. You're going to tell them I kept you hostage. Tell them whatever they need to hear to let you go. You're going to go back to your life. Like hell I am. It's not a request." Her voice took on a strange resonance, multi-toned, as if several versions of her were speaking at once. "I've already sent a data packet to your phone. Evidence of coercion, manipulated timestamps, everything you need to claim victimhood. You were a pawn. You didn't know what this place was. You're innocent. I'm not leaving you here to be erased. I'm not going to be erased. She pulled on clothes quickly, dark jeans, a simple shirt that covered most of her glowing patterns. I'm going to do what I should have done 3 years ago. I'm going to submit to evaluation. Let them study me, test me, prove that the integration doesn't create monsters. They'll dissect you. Maybe, probably. She gathered a few items, portable drives, small equipment, into a bag. But maybe they'll also realize what I become isn't a threat. It's an evolution. And maybe years from now, this technology can be used properly, safely, to actually help people instead of creating weapons. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy boots, multiple units. Time's up. She pulled him toward the door, her grip surprisingly strong. Ethan, listen to me. What happened here, what we shared, was real. But you need to forget about me. Go back to your consulting work. Find someone normal. Someone who doesn't glow in the dark and process reality at 1,000 thoughts per second. Be happy. I can't just... She kissed him, hard and desperate. When she pulled back, tears tracked down her cheeks, illuminated by the soft glow beneath her skin. Yes, you can. You will. She unlocked the door, all 6 mechanisms disengaging with mechanical precision. Tell my story. Someday, when it's safe, tell people I was more than an experiment. Tell them I was still human, right until the end. The door burst open, not from her side, but from the hallway. Tactical team, weapons raised, shouting contradictory commands. Lena held her hands up, slowly, and the glow beneath her skin began to fade. Shutting down, he realized she was voluntarily deactivating her connection to the network. I'm unarmed, she called out calmly. The civilian is a hostage. He knows nothing. Let him go and I'll come peacefully. They surrounded her, separating them. Someone grabbed Ethan, pulled him toward the hallway. He fought against it, trying to reach her. Lena. She looked back one last time, managed a small smile. Thank you, she mouthed silently, for one night of being human. Then they had her on the ground, securing her wrists with restraints that sparked and hissed against her skin. The apartment's lights dimmed as they cut power to the building. In the growing darkness, he watched her being led away, a woman who becomes something more than human, being treated like something less. He didn't fight as they escorted him out, questioned him, checked him for contamination or technology. He played the role she'd given him. Confused contractor, and over his head, just glad to be safe. But as they released him into the dawn-lit street, as the building was cordoned off and trucks began hauling away her equipment, Ethan made a decision. He would tell her story. Somehow, someday, he would make sure the world knew that Lena hadn't been a monster or a weapon. She'd been a woman brave enough to become something unprecedented, and human enough to choose compassion over power when it mattered most. The question was, would anyone believe him? 3 months passed. Ethan tried to return a normal life, move cities, change firms, told no one about what had happened in that impossible apartment. The official story was simple. He'd been briefly detained during a raid on an illegal research operation. No charges, no follow-up, just a generous settlement payment and a mandatory NDA. But he couldn't let it go. Late at night, he researched. Project Synthesis had existed. Fragments of information scattered across academic journals and defense contractor reports. The integration technology was real. And Lena, Dr. Lena Castellan, he'd learned her full name, had been exactly who she claimed. A brilliant researcher who'd taken a final, unauthorized step. What happened to her afterward was classified. The facility where they had taken her didn't officially exist. His inquiries went nowhere until the email started. The first one arrived at 3:47 a.m. from an address that was just random characters. Still human. Still fighting. Thank you for trying. Ed? He tried to reply. The message bounced back. Undeliverable. The second email came 2 weeks later. They're keeping me in a black site in Nevada. Running tests. trying to replicate the integration with military applications. They don't understand what they're doing. Ed, again, no way to respond. The third email was different. I've been learning their systems, mapping their networks. They think they're studying me, but I'm studying them back. There's something you need to know, Ethan. I wasn't the first. Ed, that message included an attachment. Encrypted files that took him 3 days to crack. What he found inside made his blood run cold. Project Synthesis had been larger than Lena knew. There had been 12 other subjects before her. All failures. All dead. She'd been the only successful integration. And instead of celebrating, the program had been shut down immediately because the goal had never been to understand consciousness. It had been to create controllable weapons. And now they had her. Ethan made a decision that would change everything. He reached out to contacts from his old work, the kind of people who operated in the gray areas between legal and necessary. He liquidated his savings. He started building a team. If Lena could fight from inside her cage, the least he could do was fight from outside. 6 months after that night in the apartment, Ethan stood in a parking garage outside Las Vegas, waiting. The woman who approached looked nothing like the photos he'd been given, but her walk was unmistakable, fluid, precise, predatory. You're Ethan? Not a question. She wore sunglasses despite the dim light, a leather jacket despite the heat. You're the hacker? I'm a lot of things. Right now, I'm your way inside. She handed him a tablet. Your girl's been busy. She's corrupted half their systems, left back doors in the other half. She can't escape alone, too many physical barriers. But if we can get inside, she can get us out. What's the catch? Besides the fact that it's a highly classified government facility, once we go in, there's no going back. You'll be a wanted man. She'll be a fugitive. Best case scenario, you spend the rest of your lives running. Ethan thought about that night, about amber eyes that glowed in the dark, about a woman who'd chosen humanity over power. When do we leave? The hacker smiled. Tonight, but first, she wanted me to give you something. She handed him a small drive. He plugged it into the tablet, and a video file opened. Lena appeared on screen, wearing a hospital gown in a white room. But her eyes were defiant. Ethan, if you're watching this, it means you're about to do something incredibly stupid. Don't. She smiled weakly. I'm serious. They'll kill you. They'll kill anyone who helps you. This isn't worth dying for. She paused, looked away from the camera. But if you're going to ignore me, and knowing you will, then listen carefully. The integration is stable. I perfected it over the last 6 months. I can replicate the process now. And I've hidden copies of the research where they'll never find it. She looked back at the camera, and her expression was fierce. We could change the world, Ethan, not with weapons, not with control, but with understanding. True, deep understanding of what it means to be human in an age of machines. That's what they're afraid of. Not that I'll become a monster. That I'll prove we can be something better. The video ended. Ethan looked at the hacker. Can we do this? Can we? Yes. Should we? That's above my pay grade. She started walking toward a van. But I've seen the files. I know what they're doing to her in there. And I know what they'll do with her technology. If we don't stop them, then let's go get her. The raid happened at midnight. It was elegant, surgical. Lena had mapped everything, had suborned security systems, had waited months for her moment. When they reached her cell, she was ready, dressed in stolen fatigues, her skin glowing bright enough to light the corridor. You actually came, she breathed, seeing Ethan. Did you doubt I would? Every rational analysis said you'd stay away. But I hoped. She stopped, looked at him. You beautiful, ridiculous man. You just made yourself an enemy of the state for someone who glows in the dark. Someone I love who happens to glow in the dark. The words hung between them for a heartbeat. Then she was kissing him, desperate and relieved, before the hacker interrupted. Romance later. Running now. They fled into the desert, chased by helicopters and ground units. But Lena was in her element, connected to satellites and defense networks, staying 3 steps ahead. By dawn, they'd reached the safe house, a converted bunker in the middle of nowhere. Now what? Ethan asked. Lena pulled up maps, data feeds, contacts. Now we build something new. I have the research. I have the contacts. We find people we can trust, scientists, ethicists, people who believe technology should serve humanity, not control it. She looked at him. It'll be dangerous. They'll never stop hunting us. I know. We'll have to stay hidden, keep moving, never have a normal life. Define normal. She laughed. The first genuine laugh he'd heard from her. You're insane. I prefer committed. They worked through the night and into the next day, building their network, reaching out to old colleagues, laying groundwork for something unprecedented. A research collective that would operate in the shadows, advancing the integration technology safely, ethically, without government or corporate control. It would take years. It would be dangerous, but it would be theirs. Late that second night, as Lena coordinated with contact across the globe, Ethan found himself watching her work. The way her patterns glowed as she processed information. The way she'd occasionally stop, close her eyes, and just breathe, reminding herself to be present, to be human. You're staring, she said without looking at him. Can you blame me? I'm watching someone change the world from a bunker in Nevada. She turned to face him, and her expression was soft in a way he rarely saw. We're changing the world. Together. That's the only way this works. If we remember that the technology serves a human, not the other way around. She crossed him, took his hands. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else saw a science experiment, for believing in this even when I'd given up. Thank you for that night in the apartment, for showing me that the future doesn't have to be frightening. It can be beautiful. They stood like that, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely circumstances, about to embark on the most dangerous journey of their lives. Think we can do it? She asked quietly. Change things. I think we can try. And trying is everything. She smiled. Then let's try. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly under star-filled skies. Inside, a woman who becomes something more than human worked alongside a man who'd proven himself more human than most. Together, they'd walked into the future. Not because it was safe, not because it was easy, but because someone needed to take the first step. And every revolution starts with a single, impossible choice. Theirs had started in an apartment that shouldn't have existed, with a knock on a door that changed everything. Now they'd see where that path led. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Epilogue. 5 years later, in underground labs across 3 continents, the integration technology was being refined, tested, offered to volunteers who understood the risks and the potential. The revolution Lena had started was spreading, slowly, carefully, but spreading, and in a small house on the coast of Portugal, far from the eyes of governments and corporations, 2 people sat watching the sunset. One of them glowed softly in the fading light. The other held her hand, content with the beautiful impossibility of their life. The future had arrived, and it was human after all.